It was April of 1947, and the pitcher stared in from the mound like he was trying to burn a hole through Jackie Robinson's skull. 50,000 people were watching. The ball came, not toward the plate, not toward the strike zone. It came directly at Jackie's head. He dropped to the dirt, the crowd reacted, and Jackie Robinson stood back up, dusted off his uniform, stepped back into the batter's box, and did not say a single word. That happened again in the second inning, and again in the fifth. 3 pitches at his head in one game. 3 times he got up. 3 times he said nothing. And there are people who hear that story and think, what a man, what composure, what discipline. But what they don't understand, what almost nobody talks about, is that the 4th time a ball came at his head in a different game, Jackie Robinson didn't just get up. He did something at the plate that made every pitcher in the National League understand, for the very first time, exactly what kind of mistake they had been making. To understand what that moment meant, you have to understand what Jackie Robinson walked into in 1947, and why what he was asked to do before he ever stepped foot on a major league field was arguably the most difficult assignment in the history of American sport. Branch Rickey was the general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers. He was 64 years old, a devout Methodist, and one of the most calculating minds the game had ever produced. He had spent 3 years searching for the right man, not just the best black baseball player, which Jackie clearly was, but the right man. The man who could absorb punishment without retaliating. The man who could be called every name that existed in the ugliest corners of the American vocabulary and not throw a single punch. The man who could carry the weight of an entire people's dignity on his back while running the base paths in front of crowds that wanted him to fail, to break, to give every person who said black men didn't belong in the major leagues the satisfaction of being proven right. When Rickey met Jackie in 1945, he laid it out with brutal clarity. He told Jackie he was looking for a ball player with guts enough not to fight back. He role-played the insults. He got in Jackie's face, screaming slurs that would make a grown man's hands shake with rage. Jackie sat there. When it was over, he looked at Rickey and asked, "Mr. Rickey, are you looking for a Negro who is afraid to fight back?" And Rickey said, "I'm looking for a ball player with guts enough not to." Jackie understood. He agreed. 3 years. He would not retaliate for 3 years no matter what came at him. What came at him was everything. Spring training in 1947, the threats started arriving before he even played a game. The Philadelphia Phillies, under their manager Ben Chapman, a man whose name history has correctly preserved in infamy, had a policy. Every time Jackie Robinson stepped to the plate, they would unleash a verbal assault from the dugout so vicious that even veteran white sports writers in the press box, men who were far from progressive, described it in their newspapers as something they had never witnessed and hoped to never witness again. Words that don't belong in print. Words that were designed to make Jackie lose control, to make him charge the dugout, to make him do anything that would give the league an excuse to say the experiment had failed. Jackie held. Every at-bat, every game. Then came the pitchers. It wasn't random. It was coordinated, deliberate, and understood by everyone in the game. If you could get inside Jackie Robinson's head, if you could make him flinch, make him bail out of the box, make him afraid of the baseball, you could neutralize the most dangerous offensive player any of them had seen in years. And if, in the process, the ball happened to make contact with his skull, well, there were those who would have considered that an acceptable outcome. The beanball started in earnest as the season progressed. Pitcher after pitcher coming inside with heat, not inside as in a legitimate part of the strike zone, but inside as in aimed at the letters of his uniform, at his ribs, at his jaw, at his temple. Jackie wore no batting helmet. No player did in 1947. Helmets weren't mandatory yet, which means every pitch thrown at his head was being thrown at bare bone and skin, with nothing between 100 miles per hour of baseball and the end of Jackie Robinson's life. He got up every time, took his base if it hit him, said nothing, got back in the box if it missed, and the pitchers read his silence as permission to keep going. It was mid-season when the moment happened that nobody who was there ever forgot. Jackie had been hit twice in the previous week, once in the shoulder, once grazing his helmet, a cap, not protective equipment, and spinning him sideways at the plate. The team trainer had examined him. Branch Rickey had called him into the office and asked, not demanded, if he was all right. Jackie said yes. He was not entirely truthful. His left shoulder ached in a way that made him adjust his grip every time he picked up a bat. He was sleeping poorly. He was carrying not just the physical weight of what was being done to him, but the psychological weight of knowing it was coming and not being allowed, by promise and by purpose, to respond the way every cell in his body wanted to respond. That afternoon, in front of a packed Ebbets field, the pitcher went to the windup and the ball came directly at Jackie's head. And this time, this specific time, something shifted. Jackie didn't bail. He didn't flinch backward. He read the ball coming in. He rotated at the last possible fraction of a second, took it off the top of his shoulder rather than his skull, and stood there looking at the pitcher. Not with anger, not with the expression of a man about to do something that would get him removed from the field, with something that made the pitcher and everyone watching deeply uncomfortable. He looked at him with absolute calm, the calm of a man who has decided something. He walked to first base. He looked at the third base coach. He looked at the pitcher who had turned back to face the catcher. And then Jackie Robinson began what he was actually the most terrifying practitioner of in all of baseball, a thing that had nothing to do with fists or words or retaliation. He began to run. Jackie Robinson's base running was not a baseball skill. It was psychological warfare of the highest order. He had a lead-off first that seemed physically impossible, too far, too exposed, daring the pitcher to throw over. And the pitcher threw over. Jackie was back, safe. He took the same lead. The pitcher threw over again. Safe. He took a longer lead. The pitcher, now thinking about Jackie instead of the batter, went into his windup and Jackie broke for second. Not close. Not a bang-bang play. He arrived at second base standing up, and the catcher's throw sailed into center field, and Jackie, without breaking stride, rounded second and pulled into third. The crowd was on its feet. The next pitch to the batter was a ball in the dirt. Jackie went. He scored standing up. He had gone from first to home on a passed ball and a wild throw caused entirely by a pitcher who could no longer think about anything except the man in the base runner's uniform who was taking his mind apart piece by piece. The pitcher who had thrown at his head 3 innings earlier did not finish the game. He was pulled in the 7th. His line showed 4 walks, 2 of them to Jackie, and one of those walks had started the sequence that just ended with a run crossing the plate. And that was the answer. Not a confrontation, not a punch, not a word spoken above a whisper. The answer was this: every time you throw at my head, I am going to take my base, and then I am going to dismantle the rest of this game from the inside out, and there is nothing in the rulebook that allows you to stop me. The pitchers did not stop immediately. It would be dishonest to suggest the beanballs vanished after 1 game. But something changed in the calculus. Before, throwing at Jackie Robinson had felt like a risk-free proposition. You might hurt him, you might rattle him, you might, in the logic of a certain kind of cruelty, make the whole experiment uncomfortable enough that it eventually failed. But now there was a cost. Every time you put him on base, you were not getting him out of the game. You were giving him a runway. And Jackie Robinson with a runway was the most expensive at bat in the National League. By the end of his rookie season, Jackie Robinson was named Rookie of the Year. He batted .297, scored 125 runs, stole 29 bases, and led the Dodgers to the National League pennant. He had been thrown at, spiked, threatened, screamed at, excluded from hotels that housed his teammates, refused service at restaurants they ate at freely, received death threats specific enough that the FBI had to be notified, and he had responded to every single piece of that with baseball. Just baseball. Extraordinary, relentless, suffocating baseball. Branch Rickey, at the end of the season, told a reporter that Jackie Robinson had exceeded every expectation he had carried into their meeting in 1945. What he didn't say publicly, but said privately to people close to him, was that he had not fully understood what he was asking of Jackie until he watched him live through it. He had thought it was a matter of discipline. He came to understand it was a matter of a man choosing, every single day, between what he had every human right to do and what would actually change things permanently. What changed was not just baseball. There is a direct line, not a metaphor, a documented, traceable, historical line, between Jackie Robinson walking onto that field in April of 1947 and the broader movement that reshaped American civil rights over the following 2 decades. Not because baseball caused it, but because baseball was watched by millions of Americans who had never been asked to sit in a stadium and root for a black man's success, who had never seen what happened when you gave a black man a fair field and let the results speak, who watched Jackie Robinson get thrown at, get up, and then destroy you in the next 3 innings, and found it difficult to hold on to every assumption they had walked into that stadium carrying. Harry Truman desegregated the United States military in 1948, 1 year after Jackie Robinson's debut. Historians argue about causation and correlation, but people who were in rooms with Truman during that period have written about the Robinson effect, the demonstrable, undeniable proof that integration, given a fair chance, produced excellence, not chaos. The argument that separation was necessary, that mixing was dangerous, that black Americans needed their own separate sphere. That argument had just been played out in front of the entire country for 1 baseball season, and the results were in the box score for anyone to read. Jackie Robinson played 10 seasons in the major leagues. He was selected to 6 All-Star games, won the Most Valuable Player award in 1949, and was part of 6 National League pennant-winning teams. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1962, his first year of eligibility. He is the only player in the history of Major League Baseball whose number, 42, is retired across every single team in the league simultaneously, not because he had the most home runs, not because he was the greatest statistical player of his era, though he was extraordinary, because of what those 10 seasons represented and what they cost him. What they cost him was something that showed up later. Jackie Robinson aged faster than he should have. The stress, the sustained, years-long, unrelenting stress of being the first, of being the target, of absorbing hatred as a professional obligation, took a physical toll that his doctors noted and that he quietly acknowledged. He developed diabetes. His eyesight deteriorated significantly in his later years. He died in 1972 at the age of 53. He was nearly blind at the end, 53 years old. At his funeral, the Reverend Jesse Jackson delivered the eulogy. He said that Jackie Robinson was a black man who carried himself as if there was no such thing as a free ride. He said that Jackie's body was a temple of black manhood. He said that no grave can hold that body down, because it belongs to the ages now. In the decades since, players across every sport, not just baseball, have pointed to Jackie Robinson as the specific reason they believed a door existed that they could walk through. Not a metaphor of a door, an actual door in an actual stadium that a specific man had opened by absorbing everything a segregated country could throw at him, including literally the baseball, and refusing to be moved from that batter's box. There is a version of this story where the lesson is patience, where the takeaway is, endure quietly, and eventually things will improve. But that's not what Jackie Robinson was doing when he stood in that batter's box and took a fastball off his shoulder, and then stole second and third and scored standing up. He wasn't being patient. He was being precise. He understood, with the kind of clarity that comes from being the only person in a room who cannot afford to be wrong, that the way to defeat what was being done to him was not to respond to it on its own terms, not to match hatred with rage, because rage would give them exactly what they wanted. The way to defeat it was to take every single thing they threw at him and convert it into a walk, into a stolen base, into a run, into a season, into a career, into a number that belongs now to every team in the league, forever. The next time someone throws something at your head, not a baseball, but an obstacle, an insult, a door slammed, an assumption about what you're capable of, remember what Jackie Robinson figured out in the summer of 1947. You don't have to respond to it the way they expect you to. You don't even have to respond to it at all. You just have to get on base, and then run like they've never seen anyone run. And let the scoreboard say everything you didn't. If that story stayed with you, subscribe to this channel. Every week we bring you stories like this one. Real people, real stakes, real moments where history turned on a single decision. Leave a comment below with just 42. Let's fill this comment section with the number that belongs to every team. And share this with someone who needs to hear it today.